Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes while people are still joining the webinar and give time for everyone to get set up and scheduled. Feel free to navigate through your area for finding out where the chat room is, or raise your hand for questions later, because this will be an interactive kind of open discussion. So we'll be signing on in another moment or two. Yes, it looks like we still have activity of people joining on. So we'll be starting in another moment or so. Again, we have a chat box and a question button on the sidebar of the screen, or you could also raise your hand when it comes time if you'd like to have, ask any questions.
Hey, Brendan, we can see you.
Thanks. I've been on for 2 minutes. I'm ready to go whenever you guys are.
Okay, great. We were just, there were a lot of people that are just joining now, but I think it's time to get started. So good afternoon and welcome to today's MBTA Commuter Roundtable. This event is presented to you by TransAction Associates and is part of our webinar series focused on transportation and commuting. My name is Karen Dumaine. I'm the director of the Neponset Valley Transportation Management Association and senior TMA program manager at TransAction Associates. I'll be moderating today's webinar along with Michelle Brooks, our vice president, and our colleague, Kelly Marsacci, Marketing and Design Specialist at TransAction, will be assisting as well. Just a little background on who we are. TransAction Associates is a full-service transportation consulting company based in Woburn. We operate regional transportation management associations known as TMAs. TMAs are organizations focused on transportation issues and provide services that are specific to their region. In addition, TransAction also works with individual clients to manage their on-site transportation and commuter programs and to assist with compliance for the Department of Environmental Protection's rideshare regulation reporting. eCommuter.org is TransAction's commuter tool that can be used to assist with finding carpool, vanpool, or bike partners, planning transit trips, utilizing park and ride facilities, and recording commuter cost savings. Qualified commuters using green options for getting to work can register for the Emergency Ride Home program through the eCommuter.org platform. So everything we do is centered around decreasing the traffic congestion and improving the air quality by reducing the number of people who drive alone. The other division of our company is TransAction Corporate Shuttles, operating shuttles including first and last mile connections to transit, campus shuttles, fixed route services, community shuttles, and custom charters. So today you will be hearing from the MBTA's Brendan Fogerty, the Deputy Director of Fair Products and Strategy, and Carmel Levy, the Senior Manager of Sales Transformation. But before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items. We welcome your questions, so please use the chat box or the questions button on the sidebar of your screen. We'll do our best to answer all of your questions during the webinar. The webinar will be recorded and you'll receive a follow-up email with the link to the recording that we hope you'll share with others or watch again at a later date. There'll also be a short survey in the email that we hope you'll complete. So thank you. Let's get started. Take it away, Brendan.
Thanks so much. Before I dive into it, can everyone hear me? Or I should say, can the transaction folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So welcome to the Commuter Roundtable, everyone. We know it's a really interesting time for commuting and for mass transit. So we are really thrilled to talk to you today about sort of the state of play at the MBTA and to really learn more about how folks think about commuting over the next several months. By way of introduction, I'm Brendan Fogerty. I'm the Deputy Director of Fare Products and Strategy. Our products don't change that much, so I work a lot in fare programming, so our employer and university programs, some e-commerce work, and some marketing. I'm joined with Carmel Levy here, our Senior Manager, who works on institutional programs of all kinds. So your employers, when they speak to the T, are often speaking to Carmel. So we're going to take you guys through the reopening plan and sort of the T's state of play. Most services are up and running, but there are some important distinctions to keep in mind. We will take you through the MBTA's COVID response. Things got really interesting in mid-March, as everyone remembers, and we'll give you a bit of a storyline, how things went moving from there. We'll take you through some of the T's safety initiatives, including some of our crowdfunding data, and finally a short bit on fare responses to the sort of present uncertainty. We'll finish off with really the thick of the conversation here and have a back to work discussion. We really want to hear more from riders and figure out what we can do over time for our commuting population. As a final word of intro, I do want to emphasize at the outset that Carmel and I are not public health experts. We're happy to present the safety information the T has, but we actually don't know really any more other than what the T has been sharing publicly, and we are not in a great position to make sort of like public health recommendations. So just want to stress that at the outset. It's a very uncertain time for everyone, and we'll do our best to surface information as it comes out from the T. Great. So I think we're going to get started off here with a quick poll, I guess, in the transit mindset.
Yep, so where do you typically get your transit passes? So select one of the following. You can check all that apply, but also you can get them through work from my employer, at a fare vending machine, at a ticket window, on an app, or I don't get a monthly transit pass. So we'll leave this poll open for about 30 seconds. We'll let everyone get their votes in there. Looks like we still have some votes coming in. All right. So any last minute votes? We're about to close the poll. Okay. So here are our results. So it looks like most people get their transit passes from a fare vending machine, but a good chunk of you also get them through your employer.
Great. Carmel and I are non-voting members of the presentation, but we get our transit through our employer. So that's true of all MBTA employees. Cool. And I will pass the microphone to Carmel to talk to folks a bit about COVID-related planning and services.
Thanks, Brendan. Good morning, everybody. So we should start. Actually, that was interesting polling data right there, because a lot of what we deal with, Brendan and I, are programs that go through institutions. So I think we want to maybe target what we say to through those, and we'll just keep that in mind in terms of context about where everybody gets their passes. So in terms of what the T's doing right now, the water we're swimming in, the framework that we're working in is this reopening plan from the governor. We have to, this is it, right? So a lot of decisions are made at the state level. I think this was very familiar when we started talking to employers, when we did this sort of equivalent webinar for employers. I'm not sure how sort of colloquial this is for your average daily rider, I do want to say we are currently in phase 3 officially. And what that means for the T, we can see on the next slide. So basically, transit service has resumed as staffing permits, and with some context about what the current demand is. It's what I would call extremely heterogeneous, across routes. Key bus routes are seeing lots of ridership, right? So I was talking yesterday to someone about the 22. The 22 goes from Mattapan to the Longwood Medical area, right? That ridership is currently at 50% of normal. And while that may sound like a huge chunk that it's been reduced by, that's a huge ridership line compared to, you know, sort of your average bus line, which might be getting, or even the commuter rail, which is much, much lower. So a lot of heterogeneity there. We are responding to demand and the sort of what we're able to do in terms of staffing levels, because our drivers get sick or have to care for people, right? This has been an issue. So as staffing permits and as demand lets us, we're essentially back to normal at this point. And the point there is we want to resume service ahead of demand so that people can socially distance, can basically feel comfortable relying on the public transportation. Yeah, just to sort of give a service by service breakdown, subway, commuter rail, and bus and silver line were varying by demand. If you want to get the most current information, absolutely our website. This is going to be the first of like 5 times I plug our website. We're pushing out all our information there. One of the things we've noticed in talking to both employees, regular commuters, employers, is that most of our communication channels with riders have to do with advertising things when you're in the system, right? So information panels and stations. Right now, we're really asking people, if you're curious, if you want to know, the website's your best option. So now we can go to the next slide, talk a little bit about just our initial reaction to the pandemic way back in March. Now, what I work on specifically is employer programs and student, colleges and universities. So if you get your pass through your employer, that's likely something that they're interacting with me about. Basically, there were 3 stories. One is if you're in hospitality or travel, furloughs, right? Needs way down in terms of travel. Medical and other essential, still chugging along. That's really tied to those key bus routes and sort of where they're going. And then a huge chunk of the the economy is working from home at this point. And so it's not necessarily that we don't have travel needs, it's that those travel demands are paused. And we don't actually know when they're going to come back. So that's why we're doing a little bit of this back and forth with folks. In terms of what we had control over, we were able to prioritize some flexibility for employers so that they, could, well, what happened was, right, orders for April locked on March 15th. But stay-at-home orders started rolling in, the week of March 16th. And so employers were making decisions about sort of office occupancy in April when they had already made a financial commitment to commuting earlier that month. So we needed to work a lot with them to make sure that they had some flexibility there to, shift what their plans were. And besides that, our office and other offices at the T has been doing as much mass communication as we could. Twitter has been incredibly active. We've been putting out press releases. But yeah, that's really where we've been able to focus. So to talk specifically, I think at the next slide, do we have another? Okay, great. So let's talk about rider safety because I know this is on everybody's mind. There's a video. I hope we can show the video because this is,
Yeah,
that's the word from the people who know.
yeah, of course. Hold on 1 second. We'll get that video up for you.
Welcome back, riders. Some things may have changed since the last time you rode on the T, so we wanted to let you know how you can ride safer in this new reality. Face coverings are required to be worn in stations, at stops, and while riding on the T. If possible, check with your employer to see if you can adjust your work schedule to travel at off-peak times. Please wear a face mask or cloth covering for the health and safety of your fellow riders. Maintain a safe distance from your fellow riders throughout your travels whenever possible. We're still here to help you if you need anything, including if you forgot your face covering or need hand sanitizer. When using the elevator, please limit yourselves to one party. When possible, maintain social distancing while waiting on platforms. Keep a safe distance from fellow riders when boarding or exiting a vehicle. Check your surroundings and give your fellow riders enough space while riding on the T. You're probably wondering what the MBTA is doing to protect riders and employees. In core stations, we're cleaning and disinfecting high-contact areas every 4 hours. And we're disinfecting vehicles every night, as well as performing midday cleanings of touch points to help keep you safe. We all need to do our part and ride safer. Learn more at mbta.com/ridesafer.
All right, and we'll go back over to you, Brendan.
I'm going to take this screen back.
Beautiful. So I love watching that video. As you know, someone who's been doing this for a couple of months now, I'm going, huh, she didn't pinch her mask. I'm just like, there's little stuff where like, now we're hyper vigilant.
Sorry to interrupt you for 1 second,
ahead.
Carmel. This is Michelle. We had a couple of questions. Somebody asking about audio for the video, and I just wanted to let people know if you weren't able to hear that for some reason, we'll be sending people the link to that too. So the link is on that COVID site, but we can make sure that we put out the link so people can get access to it, just in case people weren't able to hear that just now.
Thanks, that's really important. mbta.com/ridesafer is where you can get it. mbta.com/COVID-19 is also going to sort of be your portal to all kinds of stuff. One of the really cool things that was shown in that video is our brand new crowding data that we're sending out to basically all of the digital services that consume scheduling information from us. So it's on our website, as you can see here. And about every 2 weeks, we release a new batch of buses for which this is available. And it's extremely important, especially for our high ridership lines, that people be able to, know that the bus that's coming to them has some sort of, crowding level on it, and make a decision about whether they can or want to wait for the next one. Yeah, I don't know that there's much more to say here, except I would check our website to see exactly which buses it's on. Brendan, is there something more we want to add here? No. Okay.
No, that's it for now. We do want to say we know there are a lot of folks who use other modes that might appreciate crowding data, say for commuter rail. We have an issue with technology, frankly, that we don't have real-time readers for boarding and I think they call it alighting in the commuter rail world. So buses.
That's right, boarding and alighting.
The commuter rail. Buses have technology the commuter rail lines don't. So we're rolling this out as we can, but there are some constraints we face. So
yeah,
before
but
we go into
if you want to ride commuter rail, there's room. It's fine.
Great.
Not a lot of. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. So before we get into fare-related info, we have our second poll here.
Yep, so we'll go ahead and launch that poll. What public transit modes do you typically use for commuting to work? Please check all that apply. Subway, bus, commuter rail, ferry, or not applicable. I typically do not use the MBTA. Again, we'll leave this open for about 30 seconds or so. And everyone get their votes in. What public transit modes do you typically use for commuting to work? subway, bus, commuter rail, ferry, or not applicable. I don't use the MBTA. Okay, looks like votes are slowing down. So we're going to go ahead and close this poll. And here we are. So it looks like 70%, almost 70% of you guys use the subway, and then we kind of have an equal split between bus and commuter rail, and those that haven't yet used the MBTA.
Great, great. Well, thank you. Great. So jumping into what levers the T has tried to pull to sort of meet riders where they are in this time of intense uncertainty, we wanted to give you guys some context on some recent pilots that went into effect, and also talk a bit about strategies for commuting part-time, which is probably new to folks who might have formerly used monthly passes frequently. So on July 1st, we made Lynn a Zone 1A fare inbound. Zone 1A is it's our lowest fare on commuter rail. It's actually pegged to the price of a subway ride. So you can take commuter rail from Lynn all the way to North Station for $2.40. This is really valuable because folks on the North Shore have actually been seeing really, really high ridership. So our blue line and our bus lines from the North Shore are actually very high ridership, and we want to encourage people to spread out. And we think commuter rail, seeing like ridership is very low in commuter rail system wide. It's just a very good option for folks that might be facing congested buses, for example. So our second pilot concerns commuter rail only. So we created a 5-day flex pass. And this is a single product, mobile only. So it's available on our M-Ticket app that allows you to buy 5 day-long passes that are good for a period of 30 days. And these are sold at a slight discount, a 10% discount by comparison to one-way tickets. So the 5-day flex pass is 10% cheaper than 10 one-way tickets. So this is valuable because we found a lot of folks are not feeling like they need monthly passes at all, but they wanted some way to purchase transit ahead of time and see some sort of discount for that sort of behavior. So this ticket is mobile only because the functionality of our core fare system is just super limited. We wouldn't be able to get this out on our fare vending machine in time. And there's actually some concern about how we could push it through at all with our existing fare collection system. So the fare vending machines that exist now, we're in the process of replacing those through our AFC, our Automated Fare Collection 2.0 project. So that's a very long running project, but the 5-day flex pass allows us to add value in here and now. And for folks that might need 10 days of travel, as an example, in a month, you can just buy 2. This product's designed to sort of be interlocking. Like Legos, you can just stack them up on a rolling basis and keep riding on as many days as you need. The final bit I'll say is that the bus and subway system, it sounds like we have a lot of subway riders, actually has a lot of built-in flexibility. So stored value is a really, really good option. That stored value doesn't expire. The cards expire every 10 years, I think, but that's about it. So your stored value will remain active. If folks find themselves in a spurt where they need a lot of transit in a few days, the 7-day pass is really affordable. So it's unlimited transit for 7 days. It's just over $22. So that's a really, really strong option, we think, for part-time commuters. Great. So before we get into some open discussion here, we wanted to run our third poll, and then we'll hear from folks in person.
Yep, so we're going to be talking about how many days do you anticipate being in the office per week in September? So how many days are you commuting to the office in September? Less than 2 days, 3 to 4 days, 5 days a week, I'm working remotely all 5 days, or I'm not sure, I'm waiting on guidance from my employer. So again, we'll leave the poll open here for about 30 seconds. We'll let everyone get their votes in. But how many days are you planning on commuting to the office in September? Okay, it looks like votes are starting to slow down. So we'll give a second for any last minute responses. Okay. So it looks like in September, we have about 25% that will be working remotely all 5 days, about 22% that are waiting on guidance from their employers. But then we do have a fair percentage where they're coming in 3 to 4 days, and then less than 2 days, and then there will be a smaller population working all 5 days in the office in September.
It's a really interesting mix. I'm really glad to hear that. So
Yeah.
we should have a lot to talk about. Great. So we started with some open questions here for discussion. We'd love to hear from folks. Starting out with communication needs, Carmel and I are really interested in hearing what we can pass along to folks who run marketing and comms at the T. And yeah, I think the overriding question for us right now is what sort of communications from the MBTA would help you better plan your return to work? And is there a preferred way of folks identifying themselves with a response, Kelly?
So just to kind of circle back, you can use the raised hand function and the co-organizers will unmute you so you can respond or ask questions directly to the T. You can also submit your questions in the question box and one of the organizers will read them for you. We do have a couple questions about crowding data and other things. Did you want to go ahead and do that, Karen?
Yes, so regarding the crowding data, is it real time or is it updated every 2 weeks?
Cool. I can take it. So on the routes where we have APCs, automatic people counters, which is just a set of lasers that you walk through and they can tell if you're boarding or alighting, that is real-time data. I am told that we are working on four routes where we don't have that technology available. Either we're installing it or we're trying to show historical data, right? Like what you're talking about there. But what we're talking about here, that the crowding stuff that we were just showing, that's real time. Yep. And honestly, very cool.
Yep. And for the subway riders out there, we have some more granular data available on access to subway gates, but that's not quite the same thing as train X has exactly this many people. So the lasers aren't on the trains themselves. Those sorts of people counters will be installed on the new orange and red line cars as they come on service. But we're just at a bit of a technology impasse right there. Those are big capital projects that take a long time.
And I think you'll be able to see indicators of crowding levels on some of our screens. So if there's an in-station screen, there should be some of that too. But you can find more about this on our website. We can send out a link.
Great.
I just want to touch on a couple of questions that we have in our questions that maybe aren't part of this discussion today, but I just want to make sure that we, because people are asking them, we want to be responsive. I'm going to throw them out there, and I think these are a couple that we hope you could take back maybe to some of your partner departments at the organization. The first question was about asking about some additional service in a particular area, and we'll share that with you. It's always great and exciting for us to see people asking for more service because it means we're doing our job of getting people interested in it. So we will share that with you, the specific questions people asked offline after this session, and make sure that that gets passed on to the long group, to the correct group rather. And then while we're talking again as well, just about a couple of things that we think we're going to send on to other groups, there were some questions about mask wearing on the MBTA, and I know, Brendan, that you touched on that a little bit at the beginning, about passengers and about staff. And so I don't want to ignore that question, although I'm not sure that we can address it, in specific in this call, in this session. So do you want to touch on that a little bit, and just how you're going to share those that feedback, and then we can move on to the other questions.
Yeah, so on mask wearing in particular, masks are required on the MBTA. The question, I should say the follow-up question we often get is what are you doing to enforce that? And we take that question very seriously, but I want to be honest that we don't have T police out there, physically enforcing this. That is not something we've committed to our bus drivers to either. We want to keep our operators safe first and foremost, and it's challenging to keep drivers safe if we're leading them if we're putting them in a position where they may be involved in an altercation that could get physical. So in the same way that drivers are supposed to ask for fare collection politely or even sternly, but not physically intervene, the same thing would apply for masks. We can't have drivers physically get involved on mask enforcement, but it is a requirement for the agency for riding on the T right now.
Okay, great. I see that we have a hand raised from Tara. Tara, if you don't mind, I'm going to unmute you now, so please feel free to ask your question.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So just looking at these discussion topics, I don't have a specific question, but I would just put forward the following situation, which is my own situation. So I'm in biotech, so we went back to work about 6 weeks ago, and I have been a non-driver for over a decade. But I have retained my license and everything, and my commute is Redline from Savin Hill to Alewife. So after March, I switched to driving because that's a long commute with a lot of stops. And so I have a way to know when I walk into the station at Savin Hill what the situation looks like. And it could be entirely different by the time I get to Alewife. So I guess my sort of question is, you know, on Google Maps, you can see like sort of peak times, and some places like the Arboretum have gotten very granular in showing approximately how many people are in the space on certain hours and days of the week. So the live numbers could be helpful, but if you get on the train car, you know, number 3 at Savin Hill, and by the time you get to park, that car is filling up, you know, is there going to be like a hold time at the stations that's a little elongated so people can redistribute amongst the cars? Is there going to be any sort of facilitation in that way? Is there going to be any sort of granular data where I can see that, you know, these hours are, most of the cars are full or at 50% capacity? Because again, it's difficult for commuters. We're trying to make real-time judgments, and it could be different every single time we get on the train. You know what I mean? That's kind of my question. Sorry, we have a competing meeting going on in my in my house, so you can mute me if you want.
Thanks for the question. I think it's a super valid concern. You know, can we provide more granular data about what times of day are crowded? I mean, I personally don't know too much about the subway real-time crowding roadmap. Again, because we don't have those sensors on the trains themselves, we actually can't report out whether train X is, you know, we actually don't know how many people are on train X. And the data from our subway gates is in sort of like an old network. And so accessing that data is very difficult. We can't expose that instantaneously to our GTFS API, which is basically our real-time API that all the apps use. So we're super constrained when it comes to giving real-time information. I think when, you know, disclosing general averages, you know, that's something we could probably do more of. We can take that back to our communications team. You know, if we disclose more closely, like what hours we are trending busy, I think that could be helpful. And in fact, it would be better than trying to create real-time data where there is none. So talking about averages may make more sense. The final thing. Please,
sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one thing that comes to mind as you're talking is, you know, thinking back to normal times. You know, sometimes, especially during rush hours, employees on the platform would come by to a particular car and say, you know, there's a train right behind us, or, get in between people on the platform and say, there's another train just behind us, please don't get on this car, it's totally packed. Could there be a situation where platform personnel are helping people redistribute onto parts of the subway train that are less occupied?
So I don't actually know if, say, subway inspectors are going to be doing that. I don't know what the roadmap is for that sort of operation. We have resumed basically full service well ahead of demand. So that is, priority number one is getting high service levels going. That's the best way to reduce crowding. In terms of actually getting personnel to make a judgment call, I frankly just don't know. The one area where I've heard of that happening is that bus drivers are essentially, to my understanding, being told to use their discretion. If they think they're full, from like a social distancing perspective, they can skip stops at their discretion. Again, these can be kind of weighted decisions, skipping a stop with someone who's elderly or may have a disability. These are heavy things. We are a public transit agency, so we're trying to balance a few different requirements here. On the subway specific question, I just don't know what they're going to ask staff to do in say a few weeks or months time.
I have a follow-up question, if I might, for Tara. So I didn't quite get from your background sort of explanation. Are you taking the red line right now, or are you driving to work right now?
Nope, I'm driving.
You're driving. So these are you're thinking about what you knew to be your commute, and you're saying you're sort of thinking through it.
Yes, I'm trying to decide what would put me back on the subway and let me stop driving, because that is what I would prefer to do. But all of us, I think, are constantly sort of making these risk assessment calculations. And, the truth is I can control my car and I can control the environment inside of my car. And if I don't know what to expect when I get on a train every day, and if it's different every day, and if it's different 2 weeks from now, that makes it really hard for me to go back to like buying a monthly pass and stopping my insurance on my car and letting it sit in the driveway. I just don't know what to expect, and it's it's a real risk reward type situation.
Well, it's totally understandable. Again, we are trying to run service as much as we can. Right now, service doesn't go much higher because we don't own the trains, and so there really aren't any ways to push it up much further than we already have it. That's, I think the status quo right now is probably pretty good. To your point down the road, I'm not exactly sure if we would be able to offer things very differently, in part because these big technical investments are being made, new fare gates, new subway cars, but they're so far on the horizon, years, that we won't be able to deliver certain things in the next few months.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say I haven't been great about checking for updates on the website, but I think that in general, communicating with your ridership explicitly, sort of in the way that you're talking about, like these are things that will help, and it will be years before they are in place. I think that sort of communication with the ridership is really critical for helping them just make an informed decision about how they're getting around the city, work and otherwise.
Okay.
Right. Thanks,
Well,
Tara.
thank you, Tara. We appreciate this. Let's move on to another question that we have. Is the T still charging for parking at commuter rail parking lots?
Yes, we are. So the enforcement is semi-automated in that basically an inspection vehicle goes through lots a few times a day and scans license plates. So that's still occurring. And there's lots of space if folks are asking. Carmel's been thinking about that as well. Is parking demand, trending above transit demand for other reasons, local parking in particular, but we are still charging.
And I think we have a couple of raised hands, Kelly, too. So I think we're going to maybe jump over. We'll try alternating a little bit. We're going to try to get to everyone's questions. A quick answer for somebody who asked how many people were on the call voting. We have about 42 people on the call who were taking our poll questions.
Great.
So
We're going to go ahead and unmute you, Tad. Would like to ask your question? Tad, are you still with us? Okay. I'm going to lower your hand, and if you want to come back, just feel free to raise that again, and we'll come back to you.
So I think we still have a few questions in the, do you have another hand raised, Kelly? Oh,
Nope.
Sorry, go right ahead. No more hands. Okay. We're going to hop over, I think, then to one of our other questions over here. And this one is from Daniel, who said, regarding the modified schedules and reflecting the changed travel patterns along bus routes, can you provide any more information about what bus schedules might look like for September through December? And I know that that may be difficult to do, but is there anything you can share about when and how you think that information will be released?
The most up-to-date information is on the website. And like that is our song that we're singing today. We have schedule by sort of route by route schedule information. And really, as soon as it's public, that's where it goes.
Yeah, and we basically announce every week, this is the week's schedule. So we try to provide some certainty there. Again, Carmel said these things tend to be posted as soon as they're known, so there really isn't like a backlog of schedule changes that we have access to that's not public, especially not in our position. So in terms of long range plans, I'm not exactly sure which lines are going to be sort of brought to the fore faster. I'm pretty sure that express buses are generally seen as lower ridership, for example, than core system buses. Give you a rough idea of like where our heads are at, but I don't know much when it comes to service planning beyond that.
I want to say, I think the next one there, the next question on our list here, I think you kind of addressed, and it really, just to re-emphasize it to make sure we're touching on everything that people are reaching out to us about, it is about crowding data on the commuter rail. And I think we've already kind of touched on that and where that goes and how related that is to technology. And Brendan, your comment maybe, partially addresses this also about looking at, historical trends recently in the last couple of weeks about busy times. Maybe that's a way to address that for people as well, as you suggest. So I'm gonna, I didn't want to leave that one unanswered, but I think we did touch on that already.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about commuter rail is they're quite empty right now. Historical trend data won't explain much about the status today because the numbers are extraordinary, really, like 90% decreases in travel. So if folks are interested in taking a train, I definitely think you're not going to find a very crowded one if you do experiment, because ridership really did evaporate quite quickly. Commuter rail is an outlier compared to the other services. It's just much more extensive in the ridership losses.
Okay, great. I heard something about what is the parking situation at Alewife? Is construction still going on?
I actually don't know about Alewife's construction timeline specifically. Carmel, was that one of the projects that got sped up a bit due to low ridership, like repairing one of the ramps?
I don't know about the construction, but let me look up the occupancy there because I actually have it.
Yeah, in general, our lots are quite open. I don't know about the status of the construction, but Carmel with the free computer should be able to find that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm on it.
And maybe while you're looking at one, Carmel will throw another question out to you as well, so you can jump back in with that. But Sophia would like to know if you would be adding the 5-day flex and 7-day pass to the perk program so that they can be purchased through their employers at any point.
So as of right now, we're not able to do that. So connecting the PERK program, which is administered on an online sort of logged in portal for employers, can't be connected to individual customer phones. So connecting that application to, we have about 35,000 commuter rail riders, making that connection is pretty difficult with our existing IT staff. So we're working on expanding the functionality of the PERK program's application, but it's unlikely we're able to make that marriage in the near future. Just connecting that application, which is employer-based, to mobile devices that are inherently, rider-based is quite hard. The other thing to mention here is the 5-day flex is currently a pilot. So we're trying to assess if there's sort of a product market fit during this time of intense uncertainty. And I'm not sure where leadership is going to lean when we get our numbers back.
So I have numbers on Alewife. Of the roughly 2,300 available spots at Alewife, our utilization was 5% in June.
Okay.
So if you want a spot at Alewife, there's room.
Now's the time, right? And I think Kelly shared in the chat the link to the parking availability data that you publish regularly. So that is another resource where you can go and see and sign up to get a Twitter update regularly on what parking is available at various stations. I don't see other questions, but your last answer, Brendan, sort of leads into a question that I had. And people, if you'd like to still continue to submit questions, please, we have a few minutes left. But my question is about 2.0, about Fare Collection 2.0. If you want to just maybe talk a little bit about that, because I know we're talking about what's available now, but there are some changes coming at some point down the line.
That's right. So we have sort of structure all of our improvements around fare collection under this big umbrella we just call fare transformation. So as a part of this project, we do it as sort of a continuum. In the next year, or in the next year to 2 years, we're going to be rolling out some improvements to our fare vending machines. We're going to have fare vending machines that disperse actual Charlie cards. So this is on the horizon pretty soon, within the next year. After that, we're actually going to switch vendors to, and this is quite public, we are switching to a new sort of modern fare collection experience like they have in London, like they have in Chicago, where it is account-based. You have this online account and you can add money to that account, and you can use a number of different pieces of fare media to your phone or a smart card. And this will be rolled out first on the bus and subway experience. So you will be able to use, say, your phone to get on the subway, and you would have a centralized account that you can tie a credit card to. So that would reduce your need to stand in line at the fare vending machines, things like that. The timeline for implementing the solution to fully integrate all modes, including the commuter rail, is longer. So in about 4 years, we're currently planning to have the entire system unified. So you'd have one account that would be good for commuter rail as well as bus subway. So that would be a really great experience, because we could talk about things like transfers from commuter rail to subway, which is just not a technical connection we can make. Commuter rail fundamentally is still visually based inspection. You show a human being a piece of fare media, and that's that. So we're looking forward to modernizing that over time. So again, we're going to be sliding these things in over the course of the next 4 years. So you should see some improvements rolling in within the next year.
Great. It looks like we have Tad back on the line. Tad, you should be unmuted. Tad, are you able to speak to us? All right. I also think Chad may have put his question into the chat panel if we want to ask that.
Yep, I'll grab that one. It says, this may not be relevant, but with the information and maps for a particular route, would it be possible to display the number of the bus as well as the crowding situation?
So I believe, does this mean like the vehicle number? Like
Yes.
this is bus 345. Let's scroll back here because that data may actually be here. So you're clicking on that is a bus that is live in the system. I'm looking to see when someone clicks on. So I actually don't know if that data is exposed, just in the way they structure it. Like they may not track that it's bus 3622, but you would be able, like you can see here on this application, we were referring to a very specific bus in a very specific neighborhood, and we are giving data on its crowding at that point in time. So it is real time. I just don't know if we have the vehicle number listed in our API. If it's not in the API, we're not able to ingest it in real time. Carmel and I don't work on the real-time information team, so at a technical level, I don't know exactly what's in the API, but those would be our limitations.
Okay, I see that. I'm sorry. I see that we have a hand raised from Dennis. Dennis, I'll unmute you now. Can you hear us? Can you?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have a question. I'm a commuter on the Foxborough pilot program on the commuter rail.
Okay. Yep.
And they actually do allow free parking there right now. They've extended it.
Yes.
However, my question is, and I'm stuck at home anyway, so I'm not going to be using the train for quite some time, but they just released their new schedule. I guess it's a summer schedule. And they're going to be using strictly the Fairmount line going back and forth. Okay. And by doing that, it's bypassing the Back Bay station, which is a very large station. So you're going to lose a lot of potential commuters unless we can reinstitute that Franklin line. I've been taking the train since October. It's been wonderful. I love it. And I don't want the pilot to be disbanded because of the lack of ridership right now. I happened to drive over there today and there was one car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think a lot of it has to do with the COVID, but I think because the schedule was changed to no longer stop at Back Bay, that's a key change that I think you really need to look at if you want that program to be successful, and I really want it to be successful.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I know these schedule changes are not taken lightly, so we can pass this along to the commuter rail folks. It's unlikely they're able to change things in the near term, but we can definitely pass this on to them. On the free parking in Foxborough, I'm fairly sure that the free nature of it, I think, is underwritten by the craft group. And that's why they may not be.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably the case. So that's a little bit of a separate entity.
Okay.
But the program's been doing very well. Fairly good amount of commuters, but this will really hurt it if we can't get that schedule changed back.
Yeah, it's
based on the public schedule that there is some of the routes only go on the Fairmount line, and other routes, so other times do stop at Back Bay. So it seems like there's sort of more to it.
I can tell you right now, there's 10 trains either direction, and I think the only trains that stop at Back Bay are off-hour trains. In other words, prime commuting trains are not stopping there.
Yeah.
And that's really going to affect things if you want to keep that pilot continuing.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting time for commuter rail in general. I think I actually don't know what influence this will have on scheduling over time, but there's a lot of indication that commuter rail is going to lag behind subway for some time. In part because the people who live in the suburbs are the folks who are able to make the remote or work from home switch. What happens with the service?
That's fine for now, but it's not going to last forever. I mean, at some point we will have to go back into the office.
That's right. That's right.
Dennis, I will follow up on that on behalf of the Ponce Valley TMA, because that is in our region and we've been working, you know, to advocate for this service. So we'll definitely look into this and get back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, great. I think, Kelly, we have another polling question that we were going to do.
Great.
So just as we wrap up here, now hearing from the MBTA and kind of what they've got going on with crowding data, how likely are you to use public transportation when you return to work? So please select one of the following: very likely, somewhat likely, neither likely or unlikely, somewhat unlikely, or very unlikely. So we'll leave this open for about 30 seconds. We'll let everyone get the polls in, any last minute thoughts in the questions box, and then we'll wrap up. It looks like the votes are starting to slow down, so we're gonna go ahead and close these. And it looks like we got kind of a split, right? We have people that are saying they're very likely to return to public transportation when they return to work. And we have some people that are still very strongly saying they're very unlikely.
All right. So I think that this brings us to the end. And I just want to say thank you so much to Brendan and Carmel. This has been a very informative and engaging discussion. And I also want to thank everyone for participating in today's MBTA Commuter Roundtable webinar. Again, I'm Karen Demain. If you have any questions about TransAction Associates or the services we provide, you can reach me at kdemain@transactionassociates.com. Please look for our follow-up email with the link to the recording of today's event. And have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.